Hi, I'm Wyatt Walter. I play Corby on Peacock's brand new series, Killing It. And I'm here with Elias, the Man Cave Chronicles podcast.
Wyatt, welcome to the cave.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me here.
Exciting times. You just had a new show premiered recently, Killing It on Peacock. You played Corby, man. How does that feel so far?
It was really fun doing it. And right now it feels great because I've got all my hometown friends messaging me like, oh my God, you're on a show with Craig Robinson. So it's really fun seeing all the people that I've seen through the journey so far.
That's awesome, man. So
All their reactions.
I was doing some research on you. I was trying to figure out like a few things about you. Like, so I know I noticed you're born in New York, grew up in Carolina. What made you get into the acting world? What pushed you into this?
All right. So there's basically two versions of this story that I could tell. There's a very long version of it, and then there's the short, sweet, and concise version. So I'll tell the short and sweet version real quick. Basically, I was living in Wilmington, North Carolina at the time. That's where like my hometown is, right outside of Wilmington. And we grew up in a very rural area. So we had a farm with 13 acres, a pond, chickens, goats, the whole nine, right? And basically my sister saw in the newspaper that there was an open casting call for this little indie project. My grandmother wanted somebody to ride with them. So she was like, hey, Wyatt, do you want to come and just try out for this part? Why not? My little 7-year-old brain was like, nah, I'd rather play in the woods. So my grandmother had to bribe me with donuts, ice cream, coffee, all this, good, sweet stuff. And finally, my 7-year-old brain was like, yeah, I guess it's worth it. Let's go for it. So I ended up going with them because she bribed me. And I actually got the part. My sister ended up with no part on the indie project, which is kind of a little joke nowadays. And yeah, it took about 7 years for that project to get a budget, and they finally filmed. The entire budget went to the director who had worked on SAG projects before, flew him out to North Carolina. And it was so low a budget that my dad basically built like 40% of the sets, or had a hand in building like 40% of the sets. And so, yeah, we flew the director out to North Carolina, had an amazing time. And like right before the very end of it, he said, hey, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I was like, that's a really weird question to ask me. I want to be a mechanical engineer and work on the International Space Station. And he was like, that's a heck of an answer for a 13-year-old kid to give. He's like, does acting interest you? Not really. Like at that point in my life, I was like, no, not too much. And he goes, oh, okay. Well, I have this, other acting gig in Los Angeles if you want to go for it. And so I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? Because he told me at this point, it's like a real one. It's through the union. You get paid. We'll fly you out there, put you in a hotel, all this fun stuff. And so I was like, yeah, why not? Met my manager. My manager brought me to my agent. They're both absolutely amazing people. And my agent was like, yeah, Wyatt, if you really want to take this to the next step, you got to move out to California. So that's a really, really big step to just move your entire life across country, especially at 14 years old, because I had to look at my parents and be like, hey, so I know that everything that you've built here, you kind of did for your future. Can we uproot all of that? And they were like, sure, let's do it. So we ended up buying a disgusting, as I will describe it now, as a very disgusting RV. We called it the Shasta McNasty because it was a 2002 29-foot long Class C RV. So exactly what you think in mind when you're thinking like grandpa road trip. But we lived in it for about 9 months. And yeah, then we ended up putting, one foot in front of the other, and finally we're able to get a house and just work our way up since then. But getting into this business, it takes dedication and effort. You've got to love it because there's so many hurdles you're going to jump.
Wow. Now you mentioned your sister too. Now is your sister in the industry now too?
My sister's a musician.
Okay.
All of her tags are at almost Maddie, and she does like this really cool indie, folky pop type music. It's really interesting.
Now, did I read that you play instruments too? Do you play a little bit with the music?
I dabble.
Okay.
I like to sing. I've been singing since I was around 6 or 7 years old, and started picking up a guitar about like 13 years old because I saw my sister was playing and she was really cool. So I was like, ooh, that looks interesting.
Now, have you played with your sister? Like, have you like guys worked like on a project or anything together?
Yeah, we dabble every now and then. We haven't done anything, official, but
Yeah,
whenever we're around friends and family, we dabble, play around a little bit.
that's awesome. So yeah, man, let's jump right into Peacock's Killing It. How did you get approached for this project? Tell us about that.
Bro, all right. So it was pretty standard audition process. My agent got the audition for me, sent it in, did all that fun stuff. But when it came to the callback, I ended up doing the callback, and it was with Scott MacArthur. So it was a Zoom, like, chemistry read, I guess, which is a little weird to do over Zoom, but it worked. And yeah, after about 2 weeks, I didn't hear anything. So I thought that was kind of, it. And then my friend from North Carolina, Joey, decided to come down, and he knew all about the business. He knew, like, when you come visit in California, it's probably not really going to be like, oh, we're going to go do this and that and the other. We're probably going to work a lot and maybe take one day off. And he was totally okay with that. Really supportive. He helped me actually get a lot of auditions done and stuff like that. But then one day right before he went back to North Carolina, I was like, yo, we've got a free day. Let's go hiking. Let's do it. So we went to this place called Bighorn Mine. And, we were going to take like 4 or 5 hours, ended up spending a good 8, 9 hours out there because we got lost and there was no cell service or anything like that. So we eventually make it back to the car. We're just driving. About 30 minutes go by. We get our cell service back, and my phone's just blowing up. It's my agent, my manager, my mom, my dad. Everybody was texting me, just like, where are you at? What's going on? Like, you booked Killing It, by the way, but like, are you safe? And so I was like, oh, yeah. I'm safe. I'm all good. I booked Killing It. That's cool.
That's awesome, man. Well, what was the description of the show that you were given when you first, before you attempted to audition for this? And what was the description of your character also?
Dude, all right. So it wasn't really much, to be honest. The description of the show at that point, because they were trying to keep everything a little under wraps.
Yeah.
Totally understandable. But I think it was one man's hunt for the American dream, something about like getting snakes and all this stuff. So I thought it was really cool because, like I had mentioned before, I'm from rural North Carolina. I'm used to seeing a whole bunch of, obviously out there we have like the deer hunters and all that stuff. And so when he said snake hunters, I was like, ooh, that's interesting. So I did research into it, and it's like a legit thing. There are people paid by the government of Florida to go out and hunt these pythons because they are an invasive species. They're not meant to be here. So they'll eat everything and nothing can eat them, which just, wreaks havoc on the ecosystem. But the description of Corby was somewhere along the lines of just like, teenage son of Brock, doesn't really care too much to be the cameraman, but he's kind of drug along anyway. And that definitely changed throughout the course of the season. Like you can see a shift in Corby throughout the course of the season.
Yeah, I watched a few episodes. I had screeners from screeners, and I was able to watch it, and I saw your character like in each episode. You're acting a little bit different, and like there's those certain episodes that like your character feels like doesn't even want to be there next to his dad.
Yeah, it was really interesting. To me, it kind of feels like his major arc is, his family. It feels like he becomes more of a family-oriented person throughout the series. And, in the beginning, he doesn't really care about being there with his dad, whatever. But then in the end, his main goal is just seeing his dad succeed. Once his dad's happy, that's what makes Corby happy.
How did you prepare to play this role now? And is there, what do you love about him? And what would you change about him if you could change something about him?
So I love the fact that he's a lot like me, but also a lot unlike me as well. So we're both teenagers, all this fun stuff. We're dudes, whatever. So we like pretty much the base stuff. When I got to see the McLaren, my reaction, Corby's reaction, it was the same thing. It was, I saw a McLaren and I freaked out. So that's the fun part, is we're very similar, but I feel like we also differ for the fact of I've never been able to swear in front of my parents, like physically, like swear words. I can't do it. It makes me cringe in front of my parents. But like Corby, he has no problem with any of that. He's got no problem stealing or anything like that. So it's like, personality wise, I feel like we're pretty similar, but actions wise, we are on opposite spectrums. So completely opposite.
Yeah. How fun is it playing this character?
Dude, it's such a blast to work with the likes of Craig Robinson, Scott MacArthur, Rel Battle, Claudio Adardi. I mean, these people are ridiculous in the best way possible. Scott would drop down on the floor and do like 50 push-ups before each take, just because, he was getting into character is how he said it. But yeah, Craig would ad lib probably about 50 lines per scene. And, Dan would just let him keep rolling because everything that would fall out of Craig's mouth was just straight gold. And it was really fun to play this character and to work on this project, mainly because of how much I was able to take away from the project, all the little golden nuggets and bits and pieces of information that I can now use in my day-to-day, working in auditions and other stuff like that. That's the main thing that I really love about working on new projects. What can I take away from it?
Right. Now you mentioned Scott, he plays your father. Like, how do you describe that chemistry between you two? Because you guys, like, you butt heads a few times.
So it's really funny. We offset, I feel like Scott's kind of, really took in that fatherly role, and it was really cool, because we'd go to dinner or whatnot, and Scott would be like, no, make sure make sure you're right by me, whatever. And I'm like, okay, I'm 19 years old. Like, I think I can take care of myself. But then again, I'm also in a place, I'm in New Orleans. So it was nice having Scott there with me to make sure, like, nothing bad happened to me and that I didn't do anything stupid. So, but Scott's crazy. Scott, like I said, he'll drop to the floor and do about 50 push-ups before each take. Like, I couldn't understand this man if you paid me to try.
Did he give you any tips?
Oh, so many. Don't poop in your trailer on the first day. Like, make sure to eat lunch with all the crew and the cast, all those fun tips, right?
Right. That's awesome. How was it working out with the rest of the cast now?
The rest of them were absolutely amazing. It was just so fun. Like, that's the memories that keep coming up in my head, are like, yeah, I remember, on the last day, Craig and I were looking at this one snake that was it was a wild snake that was caught on set. And so the wranglers were taking it back, and they were, going to move him to a safe location where people weren't around. And before they took him back, Craig and I were really interested in, like, playing with the snake. And then Claudia came over, and she's from Australia. And I guess Claudia had bigger balls than Craig or myself, because she just straight up grabs the snake and she's like, take a photo with me in this snake. And I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't do that, because that's not like a domesticated snake. That's from the woods. Okay. Awesome. Rel was really good as well. I wish I would have been able to have more scenes with Rel, just because his comedic timing was so perfect. Like, the way that you're watching it on the show is pretty much how he played it, which is really different, because a lot of the times you'll have like these quick edits to make it seem seamless. No, Rel, whatever came out of his mouth, it was very seamless and effortless and just flowed so nice, like, together with the rest of the scene. And so dude, they were all amazing. They were all absolutely amazing. I never got to work with Stephanie, and I never got to work with Jet. So those are the one thing that I feel like, I missed out on, but hopefully season two.
That's right. What do you hope when, like when the viewers tune in to watch this, what do you hope they see and expect from the show for the first time?
Laughs. That's the big thing. Laughs, takeaway. It's a journey about the American dream. So I really want you as a viewer to focus on the differences in like diversity in this show. So there's, obviously racial diversity in this show, but also there's diversity in the fact of we have a deaf actress, Stephanie. She's absolutely amazing, and I love the way that they played it. They didn't, make a hyper focus on the deaf aspect of it. They just, it's just a part of life, because that's how it is in real life. You don't make a hyper focus on it. It's just, that's how it is. And so I really, I don't know. I loved that fact. I loved everything about it. It was just different.
What was the reaction from your friends and family when they tuned in to watch this?
Oh my gosh. I have lifelong friends, like friends that I grew up with, like my buddy of 8 years. His name is Isaac. He messaged me and he was like, I watched Hot Tub Time Machine last night and now you're on a show with Craig Robinson. And I'm like, yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, it's really fun. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of positive reactions. Like, my grandmother and grandfather, they're old Southern Methodists, small town, so I was expecting a little bit of hesitancy from them, especially with how raunchy this show is, but they love it. They love it. And so I'm like, well, when you get the Southern Methodist, small town, old folk, approval, then I guess you're good.
That's awesome. Wyatt, lastly, how can thank you for giving me a few minutes today talking about the show. How can the listeners and the viewers find you on social media? And hopefully for season 2, they can see the news.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm at Wyatt Ray Walter on Twitter and Instagram, and then I'm just at Wyatt Walter on Facebook. But yeah, fingers crossed for season 2. This one was a really fun project to work on, and I really hoping that they bring it back for another season. And I do want to preface that the American Humane Society was there for everything that we did with any animal, and no animals were harmed in the making of this production and all that fun stuff.
That's awesome. Wyatt, thank you for coming on.
Dude, thank you for having me. This has been a blast.